Hello again, friends, and welcome back. My name is Oscar Montesiga. I'm a certified wine and spirits instructor for the International Wine and Spirits Guild, and thanks for joining me again here at the Oncork Vintage Academia. I'm at the Boost Library, and today I want to bring you a special topic of interest, and I'm bringing you this topic as a request thanks to John Merkins, and John is a friend from New York. He's actually one of our students from the Agave Spirits Institute, and he took his advanced Agave Spirits Advisor course, and he just basically suggested that I would do an episode on bitters. So I'm bringing you a kind of 101 bitters episode, and bitters, I do believe they're completely misunderstood. Bitters are a key defining ingredient for the cocktail. And of course, bitters have a history longer than cocktails, but today they define it. If you watch one of our earlier episodes, we defined the cocktail a few times. But for the sake of recap, let's define the cocktail. And the cocktail is defined by water, sugar, alcohol, and bitters. 4 ingredients that are needed to make a cocktail proper in classical terminology. The water is there to dissolve the sugar, put the sugar into solution, to basically sweeten the spirit, because spirits tended to be hefty, strong, and hot. So you add a little bit of sugar, of course diluted by water, to smoothen the spirit. And then bitters to season it. Basically, the last missing link on the cocktail is the bitters, which are the seasoning. That defines a cocktail. However, bitters, of course, have a longer history prior to the cocktail revolution, which kind of starts really in the early 1800s. But bitters in the past, they used to be really like medicinal botanical tonics, elixirs, tinctures, whatever you may want to call them. Today, we kind of define those things a few different ways. But you know, they have a lot of digestive properties to aid in digestion. So the term bitters from the 1800s includes bittering agents, including barks or roots, gentian roots, spices and herbs, and so on. So they do have bittering agents, but the term is misunderstood because a lot of people think that they're going to make their drink bitter when they include bitters. Most bitters since the 1800s include, of course, the bittering agents, but also include alcohol as a preservative, and also to extract the positive qualities out of those ingredients and put them into the solution of alcohol, and then water, of course, to dilute it, and then some sugar as well. So in most of these bottles you have alcohol, water, sugar, and the bittering agents and flavors. Today, some brands exclude the alcohol just so that they have a substitute, and people that abstain from alcohol for whatever reason, they can have bitters in their cocktails without touching alcohol on their lips. And then some other brands may have a sugar substitute, or they just exclude sugar altogether. So don't assume that today all bitters include all of that: alcohol, water, sugar, and bittering agents. They may exclude the alcohol, they may exclude the sugar, or they may exclude both, just depending on the brand style. So luckily, after the 1800s, I mean, a handful of brands were available, including something like Bogart's. You may see in old reference Prohibition sort of era bitters being referred to as Bogart's bitters. And then in the 1820s or so, another bitter company came about, and Angostura Bitters from Trinidad and Tobago. They've been making bitters since 1824. That is today sort of the go-to to most bars across the world. Just when they're buying aromatic bitters, typically it's Angostura Bitters. That's kind of the go-to, and that's one of the brands that not only stuck with us, but we've been stuck with it for many years. The other proprietary brand bitters that has been available for a long time, since the probably mid-1800s, is Peugeot. And Peugeot bitters, unlike the Angostura aromatic bitters, which are earthy, dark, lots of bark and spices and roots, the Peugeot bitters that came from New Orleans, thanks to Monsieur Antoine Peugeot, Antoine Amédée Peugeot, he created these bright bitters that are bright red, but also include bright aromatics like fennel, basil, star anise, and licorice, and another staple. So those were the two major bitters that we were stuck for many decades. Today in the market there are just dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of different proprietary brand name bitters. Some of them mimic the dark Angostura bitter style, and they're called aromatic bitters, very dark and earthy, something like that, maybe like by the Bitter Truth, the Jerry Thomas's own decanter bitters. And Jerry Thomas is a classic cocktailian. He was a master mixologist, again, OG from the 1800s, and that is a homage to a style of bitters that would have been present in a style that they would have been using at the time. Peugeot bitters, again from New Orleans, they're known as Creole style bitters, and they have two styles. The main one that they've been producing forever is the bright red, comes in a bottle the same way but in a white bright label, and that's what I have here. You can transfer bitters into your proprietary dasher or an exclusive dasher. You can decant and use whatever dasher you may want to for aesthetic reasons, or if you make your homemade bitters, something like this. I made a cranberry bitters, but where I was going to is that this is the regular Peugeot bitters versus this label that is the barrel aged Peugeot bitters, to gain a little bit more complexity. Another great proprietary bitters that are regal in the name, in like a staple base, it's Regans. Regans number 6 is like the go-to orange bitters. Another one of my favorites, Scrappies. Scrappies make probably the best cardamom bitters, and I don't know if you can see this, but I added a few extra cardamom pods in my bottle just to get more cardamom flavor out of the bitters, because I love cardamom. They probably also make some of the best lavender bitters in the market. Another one in my favorite is the Barkeep, and I have the Barkeep saffron and fennel bitters. El Guapo makes a lot of blends, and Love Potion number 9, cucumber bitters. They include chamomile, rose petals, lavender, etc., etc. I have peach bitters. Say that I'm thinking of making a mint julep, bourbon and mint basically, but if I want to include peach bitters, that sort of make it in the style of Georgia, the Georgian mint julep, for example. Homemade bitters, I made Armagnac roasted apple bitters. Bitters as a category or subcategories, you can have aromatic and spice bitters. You could also do fruit and vegetal bitters. You could do floral and herbal bitters, and then bean and nut bitters. Some nut bitters, dark walnut, and so forth. So bitters are misunderstood. Today we use them as seasoning to cocktails. I mentioned if you make a proper cocktail and you omit bitters, you have an old-fashioned given to a guest and it's basically sugar, water, and alcohol. They may taste like something's off, something's wrong, something's missing. They may not even know what it is, but something's missing. Versus an old-fashioned with sugar, water, alcohol, and bitters, they just enjoy it. Everything's balanced, everything is in place. They don't even know what bitters are, but they're content. They're not missing anything for that cocktail. Same scenario if you flip the coin and you put this into a culinary perspective. When you have a kitchen staff prepare an under-seasoned soup, they give you a soup missing salt. You're like, this is under-seasoned, you add more salt. Versus a trained and well-known chef gives you a properly seasoned soup, you just eat it, you enjoy it. You're not missing anything, you don't want to touch it, everything is in its place, everything's pleasant, because it was seasoned properly. Of course, over-seasoning can go awry very quickly, and you don't want to over-season something, but also don't be shy with your bitters in your cocktail. Don't just do a drop or two. I mean, you can start there, but you're going to be missing something, so don't be shy, throw a couple dashes. And a dash of bitters, most of these dashers, when you do a dash, you're doing 2 or 3 drops, so you may want to do 2 dashes. That would be 3, 4, 5, 6 drops. And of course it depends on the bitters. I'm gonna do a test here for you on camera really quick of how you may want to think about doing bitters when you don't know what bitters taste like. But bitters are also not exclusive to the cocktail world. If you have non-drinkers, or even if you are a drinker but you want to season your sparkling water, you can just include a few dashes of bitters into your sparkling water and make it a seasoned sparkling water. Break the monotony of just water, give it a little bit of flavor, a little bit of oomph, just for fun. But also important for non-drinkers to include a little bit of flavor. It's kind of fun. The test I'm doing here really quick, I have 1 ounce of water in each glass, and I have 2 very similarly styled bitters. I'm going to use Hella Bitters, branded as Mexican chocolate, and the ingredients are water, alcohol, cocoa nibs, coffee, chile de árbol, spices, gentian, and angelica root. And it's 46% alcohol. And then Bitter Cube has bitters branded as chipotle and cacao, and the ingredients are alcohol, water, spices, agave, sugar, and sea salt. So in an ounce of water, you're gonna use a very similar amount, because we're testing this as they're both including cocoa and chocolate, basically. So chocolate is the theme, right? So Hella Bitters on my left and Bitter Cube on the right. Just by looking at these, they do already look different. Bitter Cube is darker and Hella Bitter is a little more clear. On the smell, Hella Bitter is sweeter and Bitter Cube is spicier. And very easy on the palate. I can recognize chocolate and coffee, maybe a little bit of leather. There's almost no spice. It's mostly about the bitterness of coffee and dark chocolate. Bitter Cube, I can taste dark chocolate, but also the spice. It's more chipotle driven, it's more smoky and spicier. So both have a chocolate or cocoa theme, and even in their ingredients, but one is sweeter, one is smokier, one is sweeter, one is savory, one is lighter, one is more intense, more concentrated in flavor, not just by color. So I may end up using more Hella Bitters product into one specific cocktail versus less Bitter Cube in a different cocktail, because their concentration is a little different. So I may end up using more of this product. So quick and easy way on how to test your bitters. You can definitely, by all means, if you wanted to, and I guess this is a dropper, not a dasher, but you can grab a drop and taste it. But some of these bitters are way too strong, too intense, that you may not enjoy it as an in-mouth profile experience. So you may want to dilute it in water just to taste it, to get to know your bitters when you have an array or a collection of bitters. Bitters are also used or potentially used in the culinary world. You can use these to season soups, you can season rice, you can include bitters into a glaze if you do barbecue or whatever glaze you're doing, glazing a pork chop. Include bitters as a flavoring agent. Again, they're seasoning tools that you have in the culinary world, not just in cocktails and not just in water. So just for example, I have peach bitters here. I'm going to include a few dashes of this into my Topo Chico. And voila, now I have a peach Topo Chico. And I know my Texan friends here love Topo Chico, but you can really basically include bitters into any application you can think of. Don't be afraid of bitters. There are so many brands. The only thing I would recommend you is getting a quality brand bitters. There's a brand out there that really produces bitters that are wimpy. They're made with artificial flavors, artificial colorings, and they're low budgets. So I mean, they're trying to appeal to a certain market that is maybe rushing to the store last minute to find bitters that they didn't stock. They're not the best bitters. You're gonna put that artificial liquid into your cocktail and you're gonna ruin your cocktail because you're using subpar bitters. So spend the time to explore quality, well-produced bitters. and some of them are staples, like the Peugeot bitters is a staple for the Sazerac. Another great proprietary bitter is called Amargo, Chuncho Amargo from Peru. That is the archetype, the one bitter you have to have for a pisco sour, for example. So there are cocktails that something is really missing if you don't get the specific bitter for that cocktail. But that said, you can also make your own. You could also just find a brand that you like or a style. Some of these guys really produce a whole spectrum portfolio of very nice flavorful bitters like Scrappy's, like Barkeep, and so on. You could go on, versus some others that are very specific like Chincho Margo and Peugeot. You're stuck with Peugeot Aromatic Cruel Bitters. But the world is your oyster. It's a lot of fun. I hope you learned something new about bitters. I hope you get to use more bitters. But of course, also leave me any questions, either about bitters, about spirits, about wine, about anything else, or what do you want to taste next. And stay tuned. Please hit subscribe if you haven't. We have a lot of content coming. And it's kind of weird toasting you without a proper spirit. But here, friends, cheers and thanks for watching.